Hi guys, welcome to our latest podcast episode, and I've been thrilled to be invited into Cathy Martin's home today to get the lowdown on Cathy and her life and her job and her career and everything in between around her diet, her fitness and her own personal standards when it comes to her health and well-being. So Cathy, I'm going to say thank you very much, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Oh gosh, no, I didn't realise that was coming. So I'm Cathy, I'm 52 years old. I am self-employed, single mum, well not anymore, I just got married. So I'm self-employed, I have one 13-year-old daughter, and I've been self-employed for 20 years. So I run my own business, I create events, I do traditional PR, I do a lot more kind of modern digital PR, social media management, and I like to think I create events which evoke all five senses.
Well, I remember meeting Cathy for the first time when I started my business as a 40-year-old mum, and I went to Cathy for PR advice on how to launch my brand. And here we are many years later. I think Cathy must have been about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, Main Street Hollywood, and I remember meeting Cathy, and she gave me brilliant advice on how to start my brand, and here we are, we're still here, we're thriving. So I thought Cathy was a perfect example of a female founder who on the outside looks polished, professional. You look like you have your shit together, Cathy. And most of my audience are women like ourselves. They're female founders, they're executive roles, they're holding it all together, they're trying to rear their families. They're at the stage of their life as well where they're, almost nearly looking towards retirement and looking at their exit strategy, but still trying to keep everything together in terms of their health, future-proof themselves. And I think this is what I wanted to discuss today in terms of, where your personal standards are in relation to your health. Is it something you always thought about? Has it become more prevalent recently?
Well, I will say that, I come from a family of 7 kids. So we grew up not too far from here, and my mum gave us, each of us, a boiled egg and a cup for breakfast with a slice of toast. So I thank her so much for that. She was, a shopper at a greengrocer, a butcher. She did all of those very traditional things. We had a food waste bin at the time, and a guy from a piggery used to come every week and pick up our food scraps. We were living a very sustainable life. The food that we were eating was really wholesome, nutritious. But having said that, my school dinner at lunchtime was my main meal of the day back then. When I think about it, because there were 7 of us running around, working class family, in the evenings we might have got scrambled eggs, or we might have got beans on toast or whatever. But my main meal was actually my school lunch. And I would say that, looking at what's in school canteens now, definitely it was a bit more nutritious back then. So looking at my health, and I've digressed already into food, but I do think for me, food and what you put into and onto your body is really key to how your health manifests itself.
Yeah.
So food's a massive thing for me. I'm really into wholesome, nutritious food, really nutrient-dense food. I've never counted calories. I think calories are a load of shit. But I say that with the caveat that they're a good basic guide for some people, but I come from a position of potentially a little bit of privilege in that I have taken it upon myself to really educate myself about food and the human body. I'm a big believer in functional medicine, so looking at causes and not symptoms when it comes to health. I follow Dr. Mark Hyman online. He's brilliant for functional medicine. And, I do think we live in an era where a lot of people are talking about your health as your wealth, but actually I think it's more and more becoming your wealth is your health. So the people who have the privilege of a little bit more income or disposable income to spend on good food, chemical-free products, or, to be able to afford either full or semi-private healthcare will have better health than others. And that's not fair. Again, the caveat is I'm saying this from a position of my own privilege. I can say and do say and have said, I come from a working class family. My parents instilled in us a really hard work ethic, work hard, go to school, get educated, and kind of, get onto the rat race. We've all done that, thankfully. But not everyone is as lucky to have even parents who don't have shitty circumstances, who don't have health issues or whatever, and who won't be able to give them that good start in life. So Health is really important to me. I mean, I barely drink alcohol, although I used to be the last woman standing in the bar in my 20s. I don't smoke, but again, in my 20s, I would have smoked socially, which I'm mortified about. I just can't believe that that's a decision that I somehow took or fell into. My daughter's age group now, she's going to parties where there are 14-year-olds vaping, and it just absolutely breaks my heart. So I'd hate for that to happen to her. And I would say I'm definitely now a little bit more controlled in what I eat, in that, I know I mentioned my boiled eggs and stuff, but we grew up, and I think most of Ireland did grow up on a lot of carbs. I mean, I'm from a long line of spud eaters, and I still love a potato. But, I do know that all the females in my family tree would have had a classic apple shape. And I do think a lot of that might have come from, insulin resistance, for example. So I'm, again, hyper researched on insulin resistance. So I do watch my carb intake now. I don't cut them out completely. I don't believe in cutting anything completely. I take quite a realistic approach to life. When I'm in France, I eat the bread, the croissants and everything else. When I'm in Italy, I eat the pasta. But I wouldn't eat as much or as many carbs as in your white bread, your potatoes, your rice and all of those things. I wouldn't eat as much of those now as I used to. I'm not expending as much energy either. I'm in that great kind of, in the middle of that great sitting epidemic. There are days when I'm at a computer for 8 hours. So I know that movement is really important. I know to take breaks. But I also know that, despite saying calories are a load of shit, I also know that there's a fuel in energy expended going out. So if I'm not moving very much, then why should I eat a very carb dense meal? And that's my kind of basics.
Okay, and in terms of, you talked a bit about your family, about your mum, and I think for me, there's always a chink in the armour somewhere. Do you consume anything? I think people want to say, Cathy, come on now.
Of course I do.
There has to be something here. What is your guilty pleasure? What is part of your diet? Are you 100% wholesome, clean foods, or do you enjoy some more processed foods?
I try and cut out most ultra processed food, but what we have to understand is that a block of cheddar cheese is still processed to a degree. So, no one's perfect. I'm not perfect. I love a bar of chocolate, but I won't eat. Most chocolate now is so heavy on, palm oils and all of the things that aren't actually cocoa, because I know that cocoa is very expensive. I love Green and Black's organic chocolate. I probably wouldn't thank you for a Cadbury's, and I know that that's probably going to be an unpopular opinion. Wouldn't thank you for Cadbury's, wouldn't thank you for Roundtree or any of those kind of high streety chocolate bars, because to me now, I just think, if I'm going to eat chocolate, I'm going to eat the best that I can afford. And I will, even 2 nights ago, I was dying for a bit of chocolate, and I wouldn't eat chocolate biscuits. For me, that's mostly about the biscuit, it's not about the chocolate. So I'll drive to the local supermarket and I will get my Green and Blacks and I will have my fix and I will eat the lovely, gorgeous chocolate, let it melt in my mouth. So that is my guilty pleasure.
And what about, we talked there, again, we're going back to your family and your home situation, and a lot of this it's environmental and it's almost social conditioning growing up. You become the way your parents ate. Some of us have, we have very much transitioned to this ultra processed, super busy lifestyle, eating, grabbing on the go. As a mum now, and as a single mum, how important was it for you to help your daughter nurture those good habits and behaviours around food that your own mother instilled in yourself and your 6 siblings?
I just wouldn't have had it in the house, to be honest. And maybe that sounds a bit, I don't know. I can understand why people fall into buying and consuming and eating lots of processed food, because you walk into any shop, be that a corner shop or a supermarket, and 70% of the products in there are ultra processed. So I get that, and it's really easy. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else, but I have to really think about it, and I have really thought about it. And in terms of teaching Valentina, she, like I, wouldn't thank you for a boiled sweet or a jelly sweet or anything, but she also loves chocolate. So she's picked that up completely off me. We wouldn't go for biscuits really. She loves like a white chocolate cookie. But we'll get those again, I don't want to sound like a prat, but like we get those from the M&S bakery, even so it's slightly, it's freshly made. She actually is a good baker now, so she does food and nutrition in school. She knows how to bake, so I encourage that she makes her own food. She knows how to make quite a few good basic dishes, but she's very sporty, so she dances a lot, she does athletics, she does hockey, she does netball, and lots of other things besides. So her diet is very kind of carb intense, and that's, what suits her, and she's expending all this energy. But she does know the importance of plenty of fruit and vegetables. She's always known that from she was, a young, no age. She's gone on a school trip now. She's jam-packed with a little pack of fruit. She, like I said chocolate's my guilty pleasure, but I do love the odd bag of cheese and onion crisps as well. Like, who can say no to that? But again, I follow people like Davina McCall and Davina Taylor, and Davina is, really big on olive oil crisps. So there are very few olive oil crisps you can get. You can get them in Spain, you can get them in France. So I still have to find somewhere that sells them here. So, diet is not perfect, nor is Valentina's, but I do consider every food purchase, I have to say. Okay. And even when we slip into those kind of comfort, easy, fast purchases, like, I think that's normal. What I would say also, just to add to that, is that I think we've been to McDonald's once in the past year. I think that was on the way home from a dance competition. It was late, she was hungry, she wasn't like eating beforehand. I just have never encouraged that. And I just, I would just prefer to get home and eat nice, wholesome food that we've made ourselves. But, we're all tired. So I get that people are time poor or even financially poor, and that's a spectrum. So, we can all fall on that spectrum somewhere. But I do think, and one of the great things I learned from my mum is that actually it's not super difficult to find 15 minutes to make a nutritious meal from scratch. It's really not. So maybe I sound like I've got no patience for anyone who is time poor or frazzled, because we've all been in those situations. But for me, it's about where you put these things on your priority list, and food is up at the top of mine.
100%. And I'm just going to pick you up on that, because, you do, because your value and who you are, the quality of the food that you eat and your health ranks so highly. People listen to this, it's the last thing they think of. They're lucky to get a slice of toast going out to work in the morning. Talk me through, Cathy, what do you have a routine at home? To me, I sort of, when I'm speaking to clients and I'm coaching clients, we have our standard routine home life where we're at home, or dining out experiences. And for us now, 20 years ago, dining out in a hotel for a meal might have happened once a year if you were lucky. Now we're dining out 2, 3, 4 times a week. In some cases, a lot of us are doing board lunches, we're doing client meetings, client dinners, a lot more holidays. Do you have a routine that you like to have at the moment with yourself and Valentina and your husband that you have at home? Do you have, what do you eat? What do you choose when you eat out? Let's talk a little bit about alcohol. What does that look like for you right now?
Well, there's a lot there. So I'll go first to how I eat. So I kind of do intermittent fasting without it being a thing, if you like. So
by default rather than by decision.
So I mean, if anyone's read James Clear, Atomic Habits, you'll know that if you just consistently do things, then they become a habit that you don't even think about. So with me, that's where I'm at with kind of intermittent fasting.
And what is intermittent fasting for you?
Well, I'll talk you through my day. So basically, although I said earlier that my mum set us up for a good day with our boiled egg and our slice of toast each, I don't really eat a breakfast per se now. So I think there could be 100 health experts who would argue that point with me, but I just don't feel ready for it yet.
You're not hungry for it, Cathy?
No.
Okay.
And I believe in listening to your body. So if I'm not actually feeling hunger, I won't reach for food mindlessly. And I think that was half my problem in the past. I was just mindlessly eating.
So you used to be a snacker, but you don't snack now?
I wouldn't even say snacking. I would just say breakfast because it was breakfast time.
Yeah.
You know, my body wasn't telling me to eat.
It was like a Pavlovian response, almost the bell rang, it's breakfast, it's time to
Yes.
have breakfast, you have to have breakfast,
So-
that's what everybody does.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I stopped doing that and started listening to my body. And then also I did read Jason Fung's book and, you know, intermittent fasting and whatever. So, and on that note, I've actually read loads of books about health. And I think if each of us read, you know, Bill Bryson's book, The Body. It's a brilliant and really easy to read book about the human body. And I think if we all read that, we'd be able to start taking agency for our own health a little bit more because we'd understand our body as a holistic unit. There are a couple more books that I absolutely adore. You know, Johann Hari Lost Connections is brilliant about mental health and his own mental health journey. He also wrote a book called Magic Pill, which is about his own journey with Ozempic and GLP-1s. So again, thank God, touch wood, I've never had any mental health issues apart from normal grief and things like that. But you know, it really helps understand our mental health epidemic a little bit to a degree. Magic Pill, again, I've not done yet. We'd never rule it out, GLP-1 or any of those things, but Magic Pill does help explain our need for that magic pill to get rid of weight without taking agency, doing the work and whatever. There are a couple of other books, Professor Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep. And we haven't touched on sleep yet, but it's one of my basics too. So a few of those books are really important, and I listen to podcasts about health all the time. I mentioned Dr. Mark Hyman earlier. Stephen Bartlett also has some brilliant health, medical and scientific guests on his podcast about some of them are wacky hypotheses about health and new ideas and whatever, and some of them are really kind of thorough, you know, scientifically researched and peer-reviewed theories and things. So, but I like to listen to everything. I do take my health very seriously, and I do listen to that. Back to your question though about, sorry for digressing.
You're all right.
Back to your question though about how my day looks. So I'm not hungry for breakfast right away, but I will have a coffee about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And sometimes with that coffee, I'll have a date. So I make these dates, I cut them in half, I put a dollop of peanut butter in the middle. I'll maybe add some seeds in there too. And sometimes I'll cover it with chocolate. So if I've got chocolate that's been left open, I'll melt it down and pour it on top. And then you put those in the fridge and they are brilliant. Again, really nutrient rich food that I can just grab on the go. Having said that, I know that like dried fruit is really high in fructose and whatever, so like I'm aware of that. So that's what I would eat about 10 o'clock in the morning. I know that sort of in true intermittent fasting, one would have only black coffee and water until whatever time of the day it is that you eat your main meals. So I then probably wouldn't eat again. And it's not controlled and I don't feel any hunger until about 3-4 o'clock. So usually when Valentina comes in from school, she is starving and she and I will eat our meal then. So depending on my workload that day
And
or
that'd
where.
be your main meal, Cathy?
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a 1 meal a day person. I didn't used to be. I would have had my 3 meals. Again, 100 health experts could refute me on this, but this is the way I'm eating now. I'm very aware of insulin resistance. I'm very aware of things that really spike my blood sugar. I've had my, my glucose monitor on in the past. And I just really like that time of day for eating because I don't like eating a heavy lunch because it really tires me out and I get that afternoon drop. I think part of that is to do with estrogen and menopause or perimenopause. So the way I'm kind of eating now is my main meal about 4 o'clock and literally that will usually do me and I probably won't snack again apart from that wee chocolate fix maybe about 6 or 7 o'clock when we're all settled and you know any after school runs have been done or sports or whatever, and I'll be sitting on the sofa, whether that's with a TV program, flicking through a magazine or back on my laptop to finish more work. A wee bit of chocolate is great for me.
Okay, so there's no food touches your lips until 3 o'clock in the day, 4 o'clock in the day.
I can't say that for definite because no 2 days are the same, but
Would you be governed by your internal?
I'm governed by
hunger
how
cues?
hungry I am,
Yeah.
but I always try to make sure that I've got good food available to hand, so I'm not eating crap. So you know there are days when you know I'll maybe put on a bagel and I'll have cheese and bacon and tomato with that and whatever. But you know, for me, if I'm having a bagel, I'll make sure my filling is bigger than the bread.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
And what would you put in there?
Anything that's in the fridge. So like I will squash up avocado. I put in slices of tomato. I will put in lettuce. If we've got lettuce, I will put in maybe bacon or chicken, some kind of protein. But you know, if I do that about two o'clock or whatever, if hunger kind of comes to me, then what I would eat it for with Valentina would be a smaller portion.
Yeah.
But again, probably after 6, 7 p.m, I wouldn't really eat any food at all, unless I'm going out for dinner. So you did ask me about that. If I'm going out for dinner with friends or even with business, I try and make sure the booking is no later than 7 p.m, because there's nothing I dislike more than a big full belly going to bed.
Yeah.
So a bit like when I said, when I go to France, I eat the bread. When I go to Italy, I eat the pasta. When I go to a restaurant, I don't scrimp on that either. So I'll enjoy the food, and you know, I'll have a starter, a main and a pudding if I'm hungry enough. I will have a glass of wine, again, if neither of us are driving or whatever. But I won't usually have a glass of wine even if it's a work dinner or midweek, only because red wine gives me palpitations at night. So I wouldn't necessarily reach for that. But yeah, out for dinner, I don't like eating or starting my dinner or finishing my dinner anything past 8:30. I just don't like that feeling of going to bed full. It's not nice, it's not comfortable for me, and so I try to choose not to do it. I would have been guilty in the past of like a Chinese takeaway every like fortnight, every week, every fortnight, and I think, you know, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's all about balance. It's yin and yang. But I don't know when I last had one now. There's a really delicious Thai near us, and I more often than not would choose to go there. You know, that's called Bow Tree. Also Bengal Brasserie on the Lisburn Road. I love that too. You know, I love it in a restaurant where you can see the chefs chopping the vegetables, firing them into the pan, and you just know everything's kind of fresh and the sauces are fresh. So I love that. And if I go to, like, one of my favourite restaurants is James Street South, and if I go there, I know they've got the most amazing Josper grill. The beef that they get in is among the best you can source. So I will have a medium rare steak, and I will have the rosemary or truffle and parmesan potatoes, and I'll have plenty of greens. So I do indulge when I can, and you know, we get steaks from the local butcher here, and we will have steaks, but I'm mostly fish or chicken when it comes to my protein.
Are you disciplined, Cathy, around your food? If you're
I didn't used to be.
Yeah.
I would have been more mindless in what I ate before, but I am a bit more disciplined now. I wouldn't say controlled, although I don't know, maybe your listeners would disagree, because the way I'm talking now, it sounds like it's very, very controlled. But I just know what works for me and what doesn't. And I think age gives you that wisdom.
100%. And we get to the point where at this stage we know exactly what works for us. You know what works for you. I know what works for me. There's a lot of people listening here are overwhelmed, they're bewildered, they're confused, they've read the books, they don't know whether to do intermittent fasting, they don't know if it's a cortisol, they don't know if they're insulin resistance, that's why their tummy's fat, they don't know whether they're coming or going.
Yeah. And but there's so much information out there as well. I can understand why it's overwhelming.
We have two distinct viewpoints here. We have a nourishment issue and we have a weight management issue. Now, a lot of my listeners and followers, they know how to nourish their body. They know what they have to eat. The problem is they don't have the discipline and the control to minimise the snacks that maybe have led to the weight gain. And we talked there, you touched on, you're one of the few people, Cathy, who, you know, is performing at a high level in terms of your professional career, and your personal standards are super high in terms of what is right for you. And there are very few of us that are like that. You know, I'm very much in alignment with everything you're saying there. I'm probably a little more naughty when it comes to food than you are, I have to admit. But
depends on the day.
But, you know, as I said, we talked there about nourishment, and you seem to have the nourishment box ticked. Let's talk about your weight. Let's talk about, because you're in an industry where it's about looking good, it's about image, it's about personal grooming, it's about appearances, it's about the shop window.
Yeah.
I'm in a business where it's about the inside and it's not about the outside. So my clients are all groomed, they all look amazing, but they really aren't doing a pretty good job in terms of their health and managing their weight. Talk me through the weight issue. I know it's one of the questions we talked about, you know, and we didn't discuss this beforehand. Talk me through how you feel, where you are, around diets and your weight. Let's talk about diets first. Have you ever done, what is the worst diet you've ever done?
I've never done a diet. I hate diets.
Well,
I think they're a load of shite.
you're one of the few people, I think, maybe 2 people I've ever met and talked to in my life.
I just don't believe in them. And I think maybe this comes back to, when I was
mad
about
because of the industry you're in.
Yeah, I know. Well, but the thing is, you say I haven't done a diet, but then I've gone through phases. But
so have you done a diet or have you not?
No.
Never.
No, I never followed a diet plan
Okay.
at all. I mean, I've read different books. I just don't believe in them. Most of them have been calorie based. I worked with Unislim as a client, so I love Fiona and her mum Mary, the brilliant people. And what I liked about their plans for their customers, clients, is that they were very much about the GI, of foods rather than counting calories. And I have to say, because I still get their emails, I have to say that, they're very much about nutrition. As opposed to counting calories and sins and all of those things that other people have been through. And, I've talked to loads of women over the years who are, conscious of their bodies. And so there were a lot of questions there. So let's touch on weight. So, like I said before, I come from a long line of apple-shaped women. That is my basic body type.
Would that have been your mum's shape?
My mum would have been apple.
Okay, so round around the midsection, lean arms, lean legs.
Yeah. So, I think there might have been a history of cortisol belly going on there.
Was there any diabetes, heart disease, anything like that in the family?
No.
Okay.
And my mum lived to a ripe old age of 86, and she, she ate nutrient-dense food all her life. But one of the things at the end was her colon cancer. She had breast cancer and colon cancer, which surprised me so much because she ate so healthily. But there you go. You cannot predict or prevent cancer in any way. You can only do your best. So that is my basic body shape, I would say. But you can work around it. So I have, I can do double the work of some of my peers in the gym, and they will be leaner than me. But I just think comparison is the thief of joy. I just want to be happy in my own skin. So I have gone through periods where, or even if you look at my wardrobe now, there are size 8, size 10 and size 12 clothes in there, probably the odd 14 as well. I've been all of those sizes for the last 20 years. And, I think I found my kind of basal weight point now and basal shape, but it's taken a bit of work. So we're throwing perimenopause into the mix. When I was 49, I remember making this video, and it was, I'm going to be the fittest I can be when I'm 50. But just after I made that video, because it was 50 weeks until I'm 50, it was January 2022, and I remember making the video, and then literally about a week later, I had this crazy period which lasted, and I didn't know at the time, but it was like one of those kind of like final perimenopausal periods that last 3-4 weeks, and you're just like, what the hell's going on with me? So that was the start of my periods going skew. With that came obviously estrogen highs and lows, progesterone highs and lows, and then my body went all over the place. I grew 2 melons for boobs. I have always had C cups until I got pregnant, then double D's, and then
that's unusual, because usually whenever the estrogen declines, the boobs.
No, mine grew.
Yours grew.
And I know I did stories about it on my Instagram, and lots of people said the same thing happened to them. But also my belly grew. And again, I know the physiology of the body.
Did you gain weight at that time?
Yes. So I was probably one of the biggest I've ever been in. Well, 2021 didn't help because that lockdown in 2021, the weather was so bad that from January to April, and I just sat in and I ate food and didn't really go out even for walks and stuff. So I gained a lot of weight then. I was quite good in the first lockdown, outside all the time, exercising. Anyway, 2021, I gained a little bit of weight then, and that's why I said 50 weeks until I'm 50, I'm going to do it. But with that weight gain from 2021 there, then the hormones going skew with, I grew massive boobs. Tummy was massive as well. I literally looked about 5 months pregnant. I mean, I know your uterus sits in front of your intestines, so if you've got, your full intestines, then your uterus, which is maybe expanding or contracting depending on hormones. Yeah. I literally looked pregnant. I didn't hate myself, because I've never hated myself, but I was definitely very unhappy in my clothes. I mean, if you ask me when I last weighed myself, I probably weighed myself in 2021 when I was talking to the girls from Cinch Fast about intermittent fasting. And I couldn't tell you what weight I am. Don't own a set of scales. Don't believe in scales. For me, it's about how you look and feel in your clothes.
But
more feel than look, I think.
But did you feel at that stage, right, okay, I need to do something here? Did it make you feel uncomfortable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I can't fit in my clothes, I don't feel comfortable nor confident.
Okay.
So, you know, I was ending up buying bigger clothes. And for me, it was going, you know, like squeezing into a 12. That was my oh shit point. For other women, that might be 16, 18.
What height are you?
I'm 5'5".
5'5".
So I'm not actually, I'm 5'4.5", but like so I'm okay, you know. And my body, I do feel, is in proportion now. There's definitely jiggly bits, but I'm all right. I think when you get to your 40s and certainly your 50s, you give less of a damn about those kinds of things. But at the same time, the hormones throw other things at you. So there's a bit of a balance going on there. But I did have to really double down, you know, and work that little bit harder.
And how did you do that? What did you do?
So I just had to like cut the cheese boards. You know, I love cheese. I had to cut the cheese boards. I had to, you know, stop that mindless eating. I really cut down on my processed white carbs. So like I'll still eat carbs. And I mean, anything that grows out of the ground is carb based, of course. But like, you know, those like white processed bread, never was a fan of that anyway. The only white bread I'd really eat is a baguette in France or a croissant or whatever. But those kind of like processed breads, I cut out completely. And I would, you know, just get a little bit better with my food choices. I was exercising at that time, so it wasn't like I had to start exercising. I just had to double down on it. And you know,
what do you do, Cathy? What is your normal exercise regime?
What I love, and I felt at my fittest and I had most vitality, I think, for about 4 or 5 years when I was doing body pump, which is a Les Mills exercise. Because I'd never really had upper body strength before I did body pump. And I had the most amazing teacher, Julie, who just got the whole class whooping and all sorts. And I really loved that. And then I ended up having to leave that gym. It was closed, obviously, we're locked down. And then we moved over to this side of town. So I haven't really picked that up again. I do go to a gym now and there's an equivalent to body pump, but excuse me, it's just not the same. But what that did instill in me is a love of actually, you know, lifting weights above my head and finding upper body strength. When you talk about weight and all that kind of thing, I guess, and body consciousness, I've always been really conscious of my boobs. And like I say, they ballooned. But like, you know, my boobs definitely would have affected my posture overall. Not in an I'm uncomfortable kind of way.
Do you think you were slouching forward?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Almost detract from the boobs?
So a little bit of subconscious detracting from the boobs. A little bit of literally like body balance tilting. Like, you know, they are heavy.
Yeah, toppling over, Cathy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I've spoken about this loads over the past 20 years. You know, styling big boobs is a very difficult thing for a lot of women because, first of all, you know, if I put the same dress on as someone with a lovely wee B cup, you know, I will automatically look like a big busty barmaid. The boobs are there. They're not there for your titillation, Mr. Whoever's looking at them. And, you know, the same girl could look demure, you know, and lovely and floaty and flowery. And then if I put the same dress on in my size, but my boobs are there, you know, I just potentially look just not as demure or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, there are hundreds of women who'd fight back and disagree with me on that point. But what I'm saying is, and you acknowledge that I come from an industry where image is really important. So, you know, I've been the person wearing the top and, you know, a man has spoken to me and he's literally ignored my eyes and just talked to my boob. And I have in the past touched a man's chin to bring him back up and go, hey, you know, what are you doing there? It's just not fair. You know, boobs are sexualized very, very quickly. You know, we're objectified if we show any amount of cleavage, whether we like it or not. You know, I lived in Italy for a number of years and and before Sky Sports had any female presenters or commentators on for the football here in the UK, Italy had loads of female presenters talking about football and they were all really sexy, buxom and beautiful and full of confidence. And I loved that. And I learned a lot from, you know, my time living in Italy and previously my time living in France. And I will say actually that, you know, a lot of my theories and beliefs on food will have come from that time as well, and how, you know, the Italians and French are so inherently, it's so inherently ingrained in them that, you know, about the goodness of food and nutrition. So probably a little bit of that, whilst some came from my mum, a lot of it would have come from my time in Italy and France as well. But look, I keep digressing. So back to your question about weight. So I've been up and down. I do have a natural apple shape. My boobs, I've always been quite conscious of. And I do think they're difficult to style. My tummy would have always been an issue. Not massive, but I always would have been conscious of it. But, you know, we have to realise that, you know, a natural curve is part of being female. It's part of our anatomy. To expect a flat tummy, like most of the women I see, and I say most, not all, most of the women I see who are all about a flat tummy online, they're freaking miserable. You know, they're really, you know, people might think I'm controlled in my eating. They eat powdered crap, you know, and they don't really consume, you know.
Is there a truth? Because I think a lot of women come to me and they're looking at flat tummy, and I'm going, guys, we're in our 50s, get a grip. Jesus Christ, that's the least of your worries.
Yeah.
No, let's just get a reduced waist circumference, reduced belly fat, improve our gut health. But how controlled are these people? Let's give our listeners the truth, Cathy. You know, when you see someone who's super lean, because I know the answer, you know the answer, let's tell the listeners, when we see women who are super lean in their 50s, who are almost supermodel lean, you know, what does that take?
Well, we have to acknowledge that some of it is genetics, you know.
Very few.
Some of it is genetics and body type. So if you're like 5'10", you know, your weight is going to disperse a lot more leanly than it would on me, for example. So there's that. Okay, so let's park that. But I know people who are very, I'll say, calorie restrictive, even though I don't love calories myself, but you know, they will be very restrictive in what they eat. And to me, that just makes life really, really boring. I love food. I love cooking. I co-presented on a food program in RTE back in the late 90s. You know, I lived in France and Italy. I learned so much from all the French and Italian friends and families that I stayed with or were friends with over the years. I just would find life really boring if I didn't have the joy of eating nice food. But, you know, back to, I do think you're right. I do think it's unrealistic to want a flat tummy. Unless you want to have a really boring life. It's unrealistic. I have found, you know, I still look at photographs or videos of myself because that's part of what I do, and I see the odd wee tummy and I'm like, oh God. But I don't hate myself for it. I might roll my own eyes.
You have it in perspective more now than you probably would have when you're 20s or 30s, where it may have been a thing, and you know, it's like the C-section pouch. I was going, ladies, be glad that you have it, that you have a beautiful, healthy child. I'm all for that, you know, and I think it's fantastic that you're saying that. Embrace the roundness in your belly, because we ain't spring chickens anymore, and you don't want to be.
But if I were, and I have to be honest here, if I were a size 12 again or 14 with a tummy, it's bigger. So it's all about perspective visually as well. So a size 12 or size 14 or size 16 tummy, if it were the same like proportions as mine now, it would look bigger. And I get that women would be super conscious of that. But I do think you're right though in trying to channel their focus more on, say, a waist circumference. And also, you know, what a lot of women don't necessarily know, or they aren't maybe necessarily confident with styling themselves, really easy things like giving yourself a much more tailored or structured shoulder, and you know, bringing your waist in can give you a gorgeous silhouette that maybe you won't know how to create unless you've been shown. So I do think there are ways we can style ourselves, but then again, it's all about how you feel naked in front of your husband, or if you're single, new partner, or whatever. So you know, I actually am really happy with my body naked. There are wrinkles and whatever. Touch wood, I haven't really ever had much cellulite. But, you know, I'm really happy with my body naked. I will run about the house. Boobs are still perting up, even though they're big. I won't say I'll run about the house, but, you know, I'll go from the bedroom to the bathroom, you know, and
no problem running about bra and pants.
I wouldn't be hyper conscious where I'm covering myself. But when I was a little bit bigger, I might have been a bit more like that. So again, it's about being comfortable in your own skin. I do think, again, when you get to your 40s and especially in your 50s, it's a bit less about vanity and more about vitality. So, you know, for me, it's about how I feel more than how I look. How I look is still important to me. I don't care if that sounds vain.
No,
but, you know,
100%. And Cathy, I'm looking at you right now, and for anybody listening to this, I never look at anybody, and I never ever, the first thing that always catches me about someone is their eyes and their skin. And to me, health comes, you can see it in people's eyes, you can see it in the texture in their skin, you can see it in their hair, you can see it, you can just see it.
Yeah.
And you're glowing.
Oh, thank you.
You're glowing. And it's never about being skinny, it's about being healthy, it's about thriving. And I can tell there's a lot of attention and focus goes on the quality of your food, and you can see it in your skin.
Oh, thank you.
And I think
well, I have got the
so
new
important.
Victoria Beckham foundation on, and it is brilliant. It's very expensive. Don't know whether it's actually worth the money, but yes, I do agree. I believe in really good nutritional skincare.
And I think as well, when I coach ladies, when I started off as a PT, you know, after the first visible signs to me of an improved diet never was about the number on a scale. It was their skin and their eyes.
Yeah.
You know, and you can see it when you're speaking to someone, because I think there's a lot about someone's eyes and their skin.
Because I've always thought my eyes were dull. I was jaundiced as a baby, so I'm always conscious that I don't have that gorgeous your
skin is gorgeous. It's youthful, it's fresh.
But it's definitely a bit more dehydrated than it always was.
And let's talk about that now. You know, I am obsessed with skincare. I'm obsessed with people's routines. I'm obsessed with their diet. How much do you exercise? Tell me about your sleep. I'm pulling. I'm extracting every drop out of you here. But you're good because you're happy to talk about it.
So let's talk about sleep first.
Yeah, is that talk to me how important sleep is for you?
Sleep is one of my basics. So, you know, just when you said about food being, I believe what you put in and on your body manifests itself in your skin. Our skin's our biggest organ. Lots of people forget that. Again, there's a big chapter on it in Bill Bryson's The Body. Your hair as well. Like, I had a really crap summer with my hair. I was away loads in the sun, and I was home dyeing, and nothing wrong with home dyeing.
And that's all your natural hair, no extensions?
Yeah, no extensions. But my mum had great hair.
Your hair is fab. It's so thick, it's so luscious, because
I started to lose some.
Yeah, hair thinning is massive now with women in their 50s and their perimenopausal years. But you don't seem to have that issue.
Oh no, I do. And actually, I was at a hairdresser's recently, and it was when I was in Palma, and the hairdresser said to me, "Oh my gosh, your hair is coming out." And I was like, and I knew that it doesn't feel as thick as it used to, so I knew that. And I had talked to, you know, a couple of people that I work with. And so I've got some nice new products in the last few months to really restore my scalp. So I use the Paradox Scalp and Serum. And I also have I invested in Shuyumera hair products, which are expensive but so nutritious. The difference in my hair in the last 6 weeks has been amazing. Plus, and I know you're not necessarily a fan, but I do take collagen. And again, I started taking that in the summer. The collagen that I use is from a local company called British Supplements. They're based in Armagh. And what I love about that company is that they're all about, you know, having really clean products with no fillers and none of the other crap that goes in most supplements that are on the market. I've also started taking, and again, I'm jumping around, but just while I'm on supplements, I've also started taking, again in the last few months, and because of perimenopause, because I'm not on HRT.
Why did you make that decision not to go on HRT?
Because I've never taken the pill in my life, so I've never suppressed my estrogen medically or whatever, and now I don't want to supplement it. But like, I did talk about this in my Instagram stories before, and I got so much feedback from women from right across the spectrum, and I then started taking these supplements called New Aura. So it's spelled Neuaura. So it was founded by a lady in England, and it's a mix of supplements. I think there's a bit of magnesium glycinate in there. I think there's a bit of sage and red clover and B12 and all of those things which we as perimenopausal women might need to help get us through stuff. Apart from the weight gain and the big boobs and whatever, which I then was able to manage kind of through food, the only real symptom that I got of perimenopause was the hot flushes, and they came on thick and fast last year.
And was this during the day, Cathy,
Yes.
or did you get the most of it at night?
Well, at night time I actually got really hot feet, so I didn't get night sweats, but I got hot feet. Now, I have Morton's neuroma in my feet, both my feet, which is nerve damage between the second and third toe. And years ago, when it was first diagnosed, they wanted me to go on the NHS waiting list for surgery around that. But I kind of asked what the surgery entailed, and at the time they explained to me that it's like cutting off the nerve, and I was like, oh, I don't believe, this is, again, it's all in my own head, but I just don't believe in cutting off a nerve. I mean, the pain is power, as in it informs us that there's something wrong. Now, I just lived with it and just wore flat shoes for the most part, and I can wear heels for about an hour. Even on my wedding day, I wore heels for, so anyway, I think that was related to my feet being hot at night. So I went to Dr. Chen, who's an acupuncturist and Chinese medicine expert, and Dr. Chen started doing acupuncture on me, and part of where she was putting the needles, I mean, it's all about your chi and whatever, she was putting the needles around the nerves in my feet. And since I've had that, only had 2 sessions, it's gone. Now, at the same time, I'm taking the Neura supplements. I've been taking them for 2 to 3 months now, since the summertime. And I couldn't tell you when I last had a hot flush. So that's great as well. Highly recommend those. Not ruling out HRT. I don't feel informed enough about it. And also, you know, my progesterone and estrogen levels could all change. I'm coming up to maybe, I think, 10 months since I had my last period. I feel like I'm in a confession box now. It's been X months. So I had a big crazy perimenopausal period last November, a year ago, and then it's like a wee flash in the pan in January. So we're nearly at a year. So I know you're only in actual menopause for one day, and then I'll be post-menopause once that year passes if I don't get another period. So those Neura supplements have been helping me. But again, not ruling out HRT. Personally, I just didn't want to make that decision yet. But I got great advice from my followers and their lived experiences, which I've screenshot and saved. And I'm not ruling out going to a doctor or, you know, obstetrician, gynecologist sometime in the future, or someone who specialises, you know, an endocrinologist, someone who specialises in these things, to give me a really informed medical consultation on there too. Just not there yet.
Okay, and talk to me about your skincare. We talked about skin treatments. So you know, a lot of us now, we like to get some Botox, maybe some fillers, whatever. Have you entered into that arena yet?
Well, you know, I've been writing about skincare, reviewing skincare since 2008. So for a number of years, until about 2015, I used to ghostwrite the Belfast Telegraph skincare, beauty and makeup column for one of my clients who's a makeup artist. So I was doing all of that writing and research every single week. And even since then, I've done loads of beauty reviews, both on products and treatments. So I do feel informed enough on skincare, beauty and makeup. I won't say I'm necessarily good at doing makeup. I still love when Gemma Garrett or other professional makeup artists do my makeup. Because they just do it better, and because I'm so time poor, I slap it on. I've learned a lot of tips from them over the years, but sometimes I think things are best left to the professionals. Okay, so skincare. I'm an avid reader of labels on any skincare product. I get sent so much, and if you went into my office, you would see my desk is literally piled high with gifted items. I used to review nearly every single one that I got, but I don't so much anymore. I will read the labels first and I'll make decisions, or a lot of the times now PR companies or the PRs within the skincare brands will ask you first, would you like to receive this? Which is more the etiquette and the protocol these days, and that's certainly what I would do with my clients' products. So sometimes I'll decline and I won't want to. I'm definitely more drawn to products which are more natural and organic. Obviously that I'm not ruling out scientific research and scientific input. But yes, I read the labels first of all. I try and understand what's in the products. I would definitely stay away from most of the stuff you get in supermarkets. and I don't want to name names, but that goes for hair products and whatever too. You know, I try and go for paraben free, you know, and cruelty free products as much as possible. And I do love local brands as well, but I just would be very careful about what I put on my skin as much as what I ingest into my body as well. So things like, so I'm a real face oil person, so I, oh my gosh, what's the name of this skin oil I'm using at the minute? It sounds like Neura. Can't remember. So I use a lovely face oil, which was recommended by Gwyneth Paltrow, I think, and I love her. I know not everybody does, but I do. Also, Tropic Super Greens oil is really good for your face, even though it smells like broccoli, but to me that's a good thing. And then I've got some cloud cream on, which is sculpted by Amy.
You have never had Botox?
Oh no, we'll get to that. I'm going to talk about treatments.
I'm looking at you thinking, skincare. Come on.
No, because I will tell you, but
Okay.
I'm not a filler person, but I do get Botox. So, so that, and I also love Dermalogica multivitamin power mask. So I actually put that on last night for about 2 hours, I think, instead of the recommended 20 minutes. I just left it on. I love a wee eye heat mask, but I like only the dissolvable ones, which are microplastic free when you dispose of them. So there are lots of products that I love, but mostly heavily plant-based. You know, even things like, you know, we forget that old school products like Clarins actually are very heavily plant-based in their ingredients. Nux is another French brand which began as a French pharmacy brand, and I love going into French pharmacies because it's almost like an apothecary of gorgeous products that you might not get at home. So I mean, the other thing is I love Body Shop body butter for my skin. I love a good like natural shea butter lip balm. I think we ingest something like 60% of the lip balm that we put in our lips, so no way do I want any lip products which are petroleum based in their ingredients. So I'm sorry, but Vaseline is a big no-no for me. Some people would disagree, but again, each to their own. Going to treatments then, I again possibly learned this from the French women, but like I definitely like to get a facial of sorts every month. I don't always share those on my Instagram because sometimes that is my actual me time, so I'll book into different spas and whatever, and I'll just go and get a facial. Sometimes I'm invited to go and have those for review. I just had the most amazing one in Hillsborough. Biologique Recherche was incredible. I also had another great one on the Lisburn Road there. So I love a facial, and I do, you know, love really good products. I do have Botox. I have it about twice, sometimes 3 times a year. I think the last time I had it was maybe either in June, just before my City Hall wedding, or I don't think I had it in August. I think I had it in June. But at the end of July, beginning of August, I had polynucleotides.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
In my eye trough,
recommended
mid-face. And then I had another session towards the end of August. So that was in advance of my wedding.
Your skin, from your eyes down, Cathy, your skin texture is beautiful. Absolutely. And do you reckon
that's more diet, I think, than product?
But this is what I keep saying to people. It doesn't matter how much product or injections. You need to work from the inside out.
Yeah, and water.
Come from the gut.
Yeah.
And you need to be hydrated.
Yeah. So I love, you know, I'm all about, you know, eating the rainbow and a whole variety of colourful fruit and vegetables because I know that I'm feeding my gut. And a couple of years ago, I got scratched by this cat that I thought was stray. He was a neighbour's cat that used to come in and sleep in our house. And I went to pick him up and he gave me the biggest scratch ever on my lip. So there's still a bit of scar tissue there. But after that, it was recommended that I get an antibiotic, and I loathe taking tablets. Like I really loathe taking tablets, but I followed the medical advice because, you know, I did hear horror stories about people with all sorts of I've had sepsis in the past when my daughter Rosie was born, so I don't want to go there again. So I did get the antibiotic, but boy oh boy did I, you know, fill my microbiome with as much nutrient dense food as I could after taking that antibiotic. my husband takes a product called Simprove, which is a brilliant product that has worked wonders for his skin and some of his allergies and things as well. I know another friend that it's worked wonders for on IBS, someone else that it's worked brilliantly for eczema. So again, that is a product which is brilliant for your microbiome and your gut. And I do think that's where a lot of our basic health begins and ends.
Of course it is, yeah.
But just, yeah, so I have had Botox. I will continue to get Botox. I know some people disagree with it. I like it. It just, it tops up what I do from the inside out. Lots of people, including my husband, will say, well, that just contradicts everything you say about natural food and that is a toxin, and that's all true. That is my indulgence when it comes to beauty. Another indulgence that I have is I'll get a blow dry once or twice a week. Love that. There is a lot of hair there,
Yeah,
so
Cathy. I can see why you would want to get a blow dry.
It takes a lot of effort to get it,
And
nice and sleek.
it's so smooth, yeah.
Yeah, so like I do indulge in a blow dry once or sometimes twice a week, and then I do indulge in the Botox. So I have had filler in the past, both in my lips, which made me feel crazy. I mean, I didn't just get it once, so that's, I don't want people to think she got it once, she hated it, she never did it again. I got it once. It was like a millimeter in my lip. I looked and felt awful. And then, I tried it a few more times, maybe would have had half a milliliter. But basically, I think the last time I had it was 2018 or 2019. It wouldn't go near fill. I had it at one point in my nasolabial too. And that was after I'd tried the PDO thread lift. But again, I was probably asymptomatic, and at that point I didn't really have the joiling to see a massive difference.
Yeah.
So although the clinic wanted to partner with me for maybe my audience reach or whatever, again, I was pretty much asymptomatic going in, so the benefits weren't as massively marked as they might have been in someone who would have had more pronounced joiling. The same thing was, and again, I say I tried everything. I did do like a vaginal rejuvenation review at one point as well. Again, asymptomatic.
Jesus, Cathy.
When Rosie was born,
game.
But when Rosie was born, I mean, they first approached me and I was like, what? And then actually over the next 6 months, I got chatting to women who had horror stories about down below. When I told this story as a funny story, then people were like, well, actually, no, I would love that treatment because, and it went from people having, physical damage down there from tears and cuts through to other women who ended up...
Did this happen to you, Cathy?
No. Well, other women who'd had postnatal depression because they couldn't connect with their babies because of the damage that subconsciously they felt babies had done. And, things like, it affecting their, what was previously a healthy sex life, and that affected the relationship with their husband. So because of all of those stories that I heard, I went and did the review. And again, I was asymptomatic. I didn't have leaks. I didn't have tears. Valentina was 3 pounds 8 when she was born. Rosie, my little stillborn daughter, wasn't even 3 pounds.
I didn't know you had a stillborn, Cathy.
Yeah, so let's not go there because I will cry.
Okay.
So Rosie was born a year before Valentina. So, but she was tiny as well. So what I'm saying is what I'm saying is there was no physical damage there from the size of either of my babies. Yes. So again, I couldn't speak or review from the same perspective as other women who might have needed the treatment maybe more than I. Yeah. But having said that, I was able to impart the knowledge and share the knowledge, and lots of women did go on and book and send me their thoughts afterwards, which were, thank goodness, all really positive. And things like, when I went to have my first mammogram, my free mammogram at Action Cancer once I turned 40.
I watched you and booked my own mammogram.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women did. It was a not quite break the internet moment, but Action Cancer's website did go down.
That had a profound impact on a lot of women.
Yeah.
A lot of us talked about that, and it spurred us on to go and book it themselves. When you see a woman being so vulnerable and getting the boob in between the glass, because that can be
not comfortable.
Yes, definitely not comfortable.
Yeah.
But you explained it in a way that I knew what was coming, because that was the first time I'd ever had one because of you.
Yeah. Well, there was at least one woman who found a lump going for her mammogram after my mammogram video, and then she wrote to me I'll get upset about this because she wrote to me and she ended up having, you know, I think it was a lumpectomy, not a full mastectomy at that time. And so she ended up telling me her story, and then I shared that on my social media, and then the Belfast Telegraph and everybody, like the media, picked up on that. That's not why I did it. I mean, it is why I did it, to help other women potentially in that situation, but I didn't do it for that kind of exposure. Having said that, the next level of exposure beyond the initial video also helped another wave of women book in for their free mammograms with Action Cancer at that time. So, like, I do believe that as women, we need to take more care of our health. Over decades, there's been very little research into women's health. You know, most drugs were not tested on women. That, you know, our periods and menstrual cycles were not factored into a lot of drugs being developed over the years. And to our detriment, I have to say.
Cathy, you're all over it. You are all over it.
My husband calls me Dr. Martin. He said I'm like obsessed with all this stuff more than some of the.
But to me, you know, for me, you are on it. You are all over it. You are probably overread. On material. There's a lot there, but you're leaving no stone unturned here. You know, this is Cathy's, you know, prevention's better than cure.
Well,
that's something that I'm hearing here. This is about me taking control of my life. I'm the boss of me. That's just speaking volumes here. You're the boss of you.
But I'm insanely curious, and when I get curious, you know, and I'm always keen to learn. I always have been, and I think all of my family would be the same. We are seekers of knowledge, so I do think we're all the same.
But you're not a person who suffers fools gladly either, no. Cathy. I would say you would spot the BS and sniff it a mile out and call it out.
Yeah. Oh, I don't
that was
like...
one of the questions I have. You know, I would say you're, again, because you're all over it, you know, you're the sort of person who's eyes in their elbows.
I don't like bullshitters. I don't like liars, and I don't like thieves. And when I say thieves, I also mean like copying people's ideas and copying, you know, I'm so over people saying, can I have a coffee with you to pick your brain? And I'm like, well, pick my brain, but there's 20 years, you know, business experience here. So if you're going to pick my brain, I need to pick your pocket, you know, and I'm so over people using and abusing me. And my husband kind of, him observing from the outside, he's like, Cathy, everybody wants a piece of you. Sorry if that sounds arrogant. I don't mean it to, but
they want a piece of your knowledge for free and they're not willing to pay for it, Cathy. That's the bottom line.
And I do a lot of favours for people.
And you know your value.
But I say yes a lot when I probably shouldn't. But again, it's a natural instinct. My mum was like this too. I love helping people and I love sharing what I know. And again, I would hope that that wouldn't be imparted in a patronising way. But, you know, I don't mind doing the legwork for you if I can give you some information, some knowledge, or whatever else to help you. But I hate ingratitude. So like people who don't say thank you or don't give you credit, or, you know, I mean, if I go for a dinner party, I'll send a thank you card.
But that's fair.
Yeah,
that's
but like
good manners, Cathy.
Oh, it is just good manners.
But there's a lot of people who don't have good manners.
Yeah, but the number of people who take not just the knowledge or whatever, and obviously if people are paying me for a service from a work perspective, I don't expect that, but there are a lot of people that I do favours for, and you wouldn't even get a thank you text, you know, and that grinds on me. You know, if I've taken people on trips before, personal, I mean, and they haven't even sent a thank you card, and I think that's a bit rude. Or, you know, like people who don't say thank you for, you know, our lovely 3-day wedding, like that would piss me off. So, you know, all I would want is a card. And like, I don't care about a wedding gift. We don't need anything. But like, if you don't send me a thank you card when I've hosted you all weekend, I just think that's a bit crap. You know, you were there for all the glory of, you know, the gorgeous food and whatever. And like, it's terrible because I don't expect it, but if it doesn't come, I notice. So I do notice that. So ingratitude is something that grates on me. I would die if I thought that I wasn't thankful verbally or whatever to someone who'd been good to me. And lots of people have been good to me over the years too.
You're unapologetic, Cathy. You're just, you're so, you meet people in life, not very many. I don't meet very many people who know who they are and are unashamedly honest about who they are. and just be themselves.
Oh, I piss people off royally because I am confident. And I do remember someone in my life previously said to me, "Oh, you're so overconfident." And I was just like, you think that's an insult? To me, that says that I intimidate you just by being me. And I'm sorry, that's on you.
That's a mirror reflecting back at what they're not.
That's on you.
Yeah.
That's not on me.
That's a you problem.
So, I am confident, but my confidence has come from a lot of work, a lot of knowledge seeking, a lot of travel, a lot of listening to other people and learning over the years. I mean, I just didn't wake up one day and go, I'm the best. I don't think I'm the best by any means. But, what I do see a lot in my peers and younger females, I will say, and let's focus on the females, but what I do see a lot of is people comparing and taking that comparison and feeling less than.
Yeah.
So if I look at someone amazing, I will look at them and they will inspire me. Now, I don't know if that difference in mindset comes from, I don't know, the basic love or knowledge of your family or
I think, Cathy, I think it's a real
attitude.
It's core, it's values. You know who you are. You don't care what other people think of you.
Yeah.
This is who I am, like me or lump me.
Yeah.
This is it.
But I am really pleased and proud to champion and cheerlead lots of women, because I hope we all do well. I don't see someone else's gain as my loss. And I think there are a lot of people like that.
That's because you're paddling your own canoe, Cathy. You're a female founder. You're in control.
But it hasn't been easy.
You dictate your pace.
People are like, oh, you're really lucky. No, I'm not fucking lucky. I work really hard. You do not see that I am like answering emails, sending WhatsApps, working. Yeah. Like I work, and this is not a boast. This is not, I work really, really hard. So I am happy to reap the rewards of that.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to do the work, but and they only see maybe the results of my hard work. Yeah. They don't necessarily see the work. But and they'll be like, oh, but your industry and whatever. But but I chose to be in this industry. I didn't do that at uni. I was going to do law, and I did do law and whatever. Like, I chose to come away from a really academic start and moved into something. But, I know this is cliche, but, if you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work.
No.
So
that's why you're still here.
Yeah.
You're the last woman standing, Kat.
You're still here. There are loads of women that I adore. And you know what I love? I've gone to quite a few events in Dublin recently, and there's a brilliant cohort of 40 plus or 50 plus women down there who are very visual and visible online. A bit less of us up here in the north. But women like Linda Stinson, who's been on your podcast before, adore Linda, want her to do so well. Yeah. She is doing so well. I love, Ilana McGowan, Pearl Beauty, absolutely adore her. I work with so many lovely women, Olivia McVeigh, beautiful girl. I mean, they're all much younger than I, but I just love females who know themselves and are quietly confident. No, they're all lucky in relationships and love, and I'll say lucky loosely. But, there are women who have shitty circumstances. Yeah. I've been one of those women in the past, and it's really hard to get out of some situations and relationships and whatever. I don't want to labour that point, but what I will say is, when you eventually get the confidence and the strength and the power to leave something that is not serving you, there is light at the end of the tunnel. The grass can be greener, but you have got to mow and sow that lawn. So,
you didn't lie down and become a victim, Cathy.
No, although I did feel like there were times when I was just like, Jesus Christ, what else can happen to me here? But, I'm a real believer in feeling the feelings. So, I will ride that wave, and I will let the grief, the anger, everything come through me. I'll talk it out with my friends. I've, thank goodness, so far never had to have talking therapy, because I just verbalize everything. I know I don't stop talking, but it does help kind of writing things down a little bit. Now, I wouldn't be a journal kind of person, but Annette Kelly, who I'm friendly with, has given me one of her little penny thoughts diaries. So one of my 2026 personal goals is to start recording things, and also to maybe pop some goals down on paper with dates, and then they become targets. But, even as far back as 14, I had my first weekend job in a shop. And, I remember at that time thinking, I'm going to have enough money to go and do a French exchange. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was setting goals and they were manifesting because I saw them in the future.
Yeah.
You know, my family, again, humble beginnings. I had to work for that myself.
You were manifesting before manifesting even really became popular.
It's only really dawned on me recently that I was doing that.
Yeah.
And what I love about Valentina is that she's really goal oriented as well.
Yeah.
I mean, she's very, very sporty, way more sporty than I would have been. And she's got this gorgeous, quiet confidence and drive in her. But I have talked to her about setting goals and whatever.
Yeah.
And also, what I will definitely teach her is to be self-reliant and, you know, financially independent and not to rely on anybody. And I think we're all guilty as parents of overindulging our kids a little bit. But I do think that, you know, for Valentina anyway, I definitely want to instill in her that same value that my parents instilled in all of us, which was to become financially independent, to row our own boats and, you know, to get on with life independently if we can.
Yeah. Cathy, love it. Absolutely love it. It's refreshing. I love talking to female founders because we know exactly who we are, because we've been through the shit and we've had to bounce back time and time again, and we have comparables.
Yeah.
We know what we didn't have, so we're so grateful for what we have now, and we're here because we love it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Just thought
Sorry if I spoke too much.
Not at all. Thank you, and thanks for inviting us into your beautiful home.
Thank you for coming. It's
Thank
been a pleasure.
Oh, thanks.